Alright, so you've all been asking me, seeing as I have so many books to read, how do I plan to read so many books in 2026? Is one book per week and one chapter per book. So, this week's book is The Lotus Shoes by Jane Yang, and this week's chapter is chapter 4. So The Lotus Shoes by Jane Yang, and then we read chapter 4, and then we read a paragraph per day until chapter 4 is completed. And then we move on to the next book in order to make sure that we have a reading interest that balances our mind or brain or thinking and or enjoyment of the sociality of the book and what the book discusses in its main portion topic. Okay, and so we also don't get bored reading the same thing in a non-conundrum way over and over and over again. So switch out the books and read just one chapter per week and read a paragraph per day and keep your mind enlightened, and that's how you can read more than one book in a year. But be honest about it, because you're not gonna read 38 chapters of a book in one day. It's just not gonna happen. I used to do that, but I can't do that anymore with the brain capacity of what I do. I cannot do that anymore. So this is what I have boiled it down to, is one book per week, one entire chapter per week, and an entire paragraph for an entire day that matches with this story throughout that day or as well as that week. Okay, so let's get into this week's book. This is Jane Yang, The Lotus Shoes, the orange copy. The last time we read this was back in February. We read this book back in February, and that was the book of the week then. And so now I've added more, hopefully to have books for the rest of April. But if I don't have the books, I'm obviously not going to be reading that week if I don't have the book for that week in the month of April to read that book. I'm just not going to force myself to do that. I'm just going to enjoy that week with absolutely no reading, okay? So if I have the book, I have the book. If I don't have the book, I am not going to read not a dang thing, okay? Because I want to give my mind and my brain just a little bit of a break myself too, okay? I like it that way. So if I can do that, I'm going to do that. Let's get into it. And we are reading from this week, page 37 to page 40. And then we'll get into part 2 sometime later on this year. We'll get into part 2. So let's read the first paragraph for today, which is Tuesday, April 7. First paragraph, and then we'll move into the second paragraph tomorrow, which would be Wednesday. So chapter 4, Little Flower, page 37, first full paragraph. I woke up to Cherise inspecting my feet. She shook her head and tutted. I sat up, drew my knees to my chest, and cradled my golden lilies as I braced myself for a slap. She stood up in front of the small window, blocking out much of the faint, drawn light shadows hiding her face. Are you very angry? I asked. She sucked in a big breath, puffed her cheeks and blew it out, then sat on the edge of the bed and reached for me. I wriggled back from her grasp. Come here, child, she beckoned. I gripped my golden lilies and she shook my head. Come, she repeated. Don't take them away, I sobbed. I need them to see my Aneon. She reached over and wrapped her arm around my shoulders, resting her chin on my head. Her body was soft and round, like mother's before we began to go hungry. I continued to hold on to my feet as she talked. "What you're doing is very naughty," she said, "but it's hard to stay vexed with a girl who is so desperate to see her mother again. You escaped punishment because I pity you, but I can't be your new mother, so don't get used to the special treatment." Now, how do I mark the book when I know I've completed the reading? By the way, excuse me, I'm not wearing any pants, so I'm using my pillow and my towels to block, okay? I'm using my pillow and my towel to block, but I'm going to show you how I end up marking the book in order to say, this is where I've read to. Let me put it up there. You'll probably see it better that way. So I take my table, ow, that's my toe, ruler, and my colored felt tip pens. Okay? So I take my felt tip pen, then I take my book, and I take my ruler, and then I line right where to the last spot that I have read with my ruler. And therefore, that's a paragraph of reading completed for the day. And what I also like to do, because this is my personal copy of the book, I kind of just cross out the portion of what I've read so that it doesn't confuse me to reread the same portion. So now when I come back tomorrow, which will be Wednesday, to read, I will end up reading this entire paragraph, not repeating the first paragraph of page 37 that I have read, because I know where I have stopped and I now know where to begin at page 38 in order to continue to read chapter 4. And that's it. And with each time I finished 2 sides of each page, what I do, because this is my personal copy, I cut the book and I cut up the page of the book so that I don't have to go back to be reminded that I've already read the page from this book already. So I already have chapters 1 to 3 completely ripped out because I've already read it, I've already filmed it, I've already processed it, and everything completed towards that chapter has already been filmed and processed by me or written down in note form. In me being able to explain and understand what the book is about and how to enjoy the book. And well, as I always say, let me bring you back up here. As I always say, read the book, don't become the book, live the book, and enjoy the book. Okay? And that's it. And with that being said, thank you so much for watching. And the next thing I'm going to do is show you how to take the book from being on the page and bringing the book to life, and not bringing the book in my home. Alright, so that is the next thing I'm going to show you. What I do is how I bring this book to life and make it a very personal book for me. However, well, not make it physically personal, if you know what I'm saying. So, read the book, live the book, but don't become the book. With that being said, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see y'all in the next one. Bye.